You're listening to the Journey Podcast. What happens when vision loss becomes a journey of self-discovery? Find out more in today's episode as one courageous woman shares her personal story. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we embark on a deeply personal journey of resilience and self-discovery as we explore the profound topic of finding oneself through vision loss. We engage in a heartfelt conversation that delves into the challenges, triumphs, and transformative experiences of individuals who have faced the life-altering reality of losing an eye or coping with vision loss. Through candid and empathetic discussions, we aim to shed light on the emotional and practical aspects of navigating this unique journey. As we navigate this profound terrain, we underscore the power of human adaptability and the unwavering spirit of those who have overcome such challenges. This episode serves as a testament to the strength and resilience of individuals who have found a path to self-discovery and a renewed sense of purpose amidst the challenges of vision loss, ultimately offering hope and inspiration to all listeners. Shelby Perry is the creator and founder of iHeasive. In the United States, there are 2.4 million eye injuries reported each year, and she became one of them in 2021. During her experience, she found it challenging to locate a comprehensive resource that could guide her through the process of losing her eye and the prosthetic process that followed. As a result, her mission with iHeasive is to offer exceptional individual coaching and a supportive community with a wealth of resources to assist others facing similar situations. Here is my interview with Shelby Perry. Hi, Shelby. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because finding yourself through vision loss is such an interesting space for mental health and holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It's an honor to be here and to meet you, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And vision loss is actually not something that we've discussed on the podcast before. So I'm very excited to hear your story and how you work with people. So let's get started. And would you like to tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to do what you do today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm 32 and I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. But a little over 3 years ago, I had moved out to San Diego during the pandemic. So I've been out here for a little while now. And let's see, in February 2021, I took a group of friends from San Diego back home to Salt Lake City for a snowboarding trip, which I grew up snowboarding in those mountains, and my whole family has really enjoyed that activity, like I said, my entire life. And so it's just a basic snowboarding trip for me and my friends. And we were having an amazing weekend. There was really good powder that weekend. And the last run of the day that before we were heading back to San Diego, I was in a snowboarding incident, which ultimately caused severe damage to my right eye. And so that all happened at the end of February, which I had 2 surgeries in Salt Lake City at that time. And then about a week later, I flew back home to San Diego because that's where I was living and established care out in San Diego. And 2 months after the initial injury of my right eye, they actually completely removed my eye. So then I'm on this mission of getting a prosthetic eye and seeing out of one eye, which to me, growing up with, I didn't even ever wear regular glasses. I had really good vision and I just never even knew that an eye injury could happen. It wasn't something that I'd ever heard about or knew anybody with a prosthetic eye. So this was all very, very new territory to me. So of course it had a lot of fear around it, just for my physical well-being, my future, my mental health, emotional health, like what this just meant for me in my life in general. And so I went to TikTok and just kind of searched out people with prosthetic eyes, which I found some, or the influencers, or some like top influencers out there that I've actually gotten to like connect with today, 2 years later. But they had really funny kind of videos with their prosthetic eye, and they were popping them out and just like telling funny stories. And so that for me was really comforting at the beginning, because I was like, wait a minute, like these are young people, like they're living life and they have a prosthetic eye, and they'd had their prosthetic eye for majority of their life. That was just, like I said, really comforting. But I was still feeling like I was lacking a little bit more connection in that community, which I was searching for. And my family and friends were so amazing during the time. They really were able to help get me to every doctor's appointment and get me to grocery shopping and just driving me around. And I really wasn't able to do much for like that first 6 months, from like eye injury to having the eye removed to like completely healing and like taking that time to fully heal. So my family stepped in, which was just so amazing. But at the same time, there's that little bit of like disconnect where they just didn't quite know how to help me fully, or how to relate or like talk to me, because they didn't know either. And so they were just doing the best that they could, which was really great. But I really needed and wanted for myself just like personal connections with other people that had been through something similar. So that's where Adhesive was born. And I just started an Instagram account and shared my story first. So this was August after the injury in February, and shared my story first and kind of put it out there that I was going to share anyone else's story that wanted to share their story. And pretty quickly, people started to like reply back and they wanted to share their story. So I still do that. And I've been doing that over the last 2 years in blog form. And I just have a couple questions, and it's just kind of like, what's your story? What's been the hardest thing for you mentally, the hardest thing for you emotionally or physically? And then where are you at now? And what advice would you give to others? And so receiving these stories, as I was discussing, were really healing for me, just like hearing all these different stories and people from all over the world, and just how they recovered and where they're at now and what advice that they could give to the community really helped in this journey for me. And so, like I said, I still share stories in blog form, not quite as much because there's just a lot of other things going on in Adhesive. So I don't actively like search out as many people to share their story, but it's still, we have tons of stories in our little arsenal on the website. And then I'm always open to sharing people's stories when they reach out too. And then since that kind of initiated the launch of Adhesive, I've really expanded in the spaces. So we do virtual conferences. We've hosted 2 really big conferences all online, where we have different speakers within the community. And the speakers range from ones that work with mental health to just like the influencers that really are passionate about sharing their story and just helping people on their platforms. And then to the ocularists, are the ones that make the prosthetic eyes. And then we always have like an optometrist on there as well. So there's a slew of different speakers just to answer everyone's question, no matter what stage of like vision loss or that prosthetic eye process that you're in. So we've had 2 of those. And then I do offer monthly virtual meetups. So we do that once a month for the whole community, and that's completely free. It's just a 1-hour hangout session. And then I do one-on-one coaching as well. And I do usually feed in some coaching into the group meetups too, just because I really love to like share anything I can from the coaching. And so the coaching looks like, for anyone in the community, whether they just lost their eye or they lost their eye 20 years ago, but they still just haven't fully, a variety of things, like grieved that loss of their eye. They haven't fully accepted the loss of their eye, or maybe they just haven't really processed through all of it. And it's kind of holding them back, even subconsciously. Wherever you're at in your vision loss, eye removal, surgery, prosthetic eye process, I come in to just really help to a variety of things. Just make sure that you have that support, that community, that network of people that can hold you. Like that's always one of my like top goals. And then also like making sure and seeing where you're at physically and where we can build on like the physical aspect. I know that's really important, just moving our bodies and for our mental health. And then we go into confidence. So I know that can be a struggle, because that was a struggle for me. And I hear that being a struggle for a lot of people is just that self-confidence, because once you get the prosthetic eye, yeah, their oculators are amazing. They're so talented. And a lot of times the eyes look pretty similar, but there are still some differences and it doesn't move as much. And just depending on the eye and the eye shape, there can be some other big noticeable differences between the eyes. And people like to actually make comments or ask questions like, oh, what's wrong with your eyes? Or that eye looks weird, or there's something wrong with your eye. And those comments can be really hurting and hurtful, and especially as children and we grow older and go through a lot of that stuff. It can really wear on our like self-confidence. So the self-confidence aspect and just building on that. And then of course, I'm big into like self-love and making sure that, I do a lot within thought work and emotion work as well too. So it's kind of a combination of like life coaching, but geared towards people with prosthetic eyes or visual impairment, as I can relate to that. And we can talk about surgeries or just processes or what questions to ask your doctor or your ocularist or how to ask your family for additional support, so there's just crosses into the two things. And then I always end within the coaching container, just like really setting goals as well too. And like really making sure that each person is feeling and living up to like their full potential, no matter what they've gone through and where their vision's at. We all have like gifts in life and these purposes in life. And I just want to make sure that everyone, no matter what, is like fulfilling those gifts and purposes in their own special way. So that's kind of a lot of where it started and then where I'm at now. I didn't really anticipate all of this at all, but it's been such a special thing for me and my life, and to be able to give back and help other people. And I just have really big plans moving forward with Adhesive too. Like I would love to do like an in-person conference one day and just really build up this community and bring everyone together and serve as much as I can within this space.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and how you have persevered through this injury to really take back the pieces of your life that are really important to you and the autonomy and all the things that you love doing. So thank you for sharing that. And when we spoke before the recording a little bit, actually, I was surprised to find out how common eye injuries and eye illnesses are. I didn't think they were that common. So vision loss and vision impairment actually is something that could really happen to anyone at any time, even through an accident, like what happened for yourself. So really important to build a community where people can connect. And do you want to maybe unpack a little bit how the injury first impacted you on a mental level? Because I think there is something that happens after you have an accident and a shock that happens, and you start assessing the things that you may still be able to do or you may not be able to do, and you start realizing sort of the extent of what has happened. How did that impact you on a mental and emotional level when that first happened?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree. Going back to your first comment about just building up life again and like persevering through that, and I just want to share that, like, if it's possible for me, and that's why I'm here. It's like, I want to share that message with everybody that it's possible for them as well too. And then at the beginning though, my attitude was a lot different. So I think it took me a moment as well too, to really grasp like what happened. I've always kind of been a person that's like, brush it off or like put it under the rug or like, just push forward. Like, let's not sit and feel through this or really be in that space for long. Like, I'm just like, let's get feeling better. But I knew with something like this, that wasn't going to be the best solution or an option, because like now at this point, I've really experienced a life altering experience, and that's not one that you can just push under the rug or not acknowledge or pretend like it didn't happen. I mean, you could, but I think in the long term, that wouldn't serve me at all. And on the other side of this too, which I'm open about this on my platform too, is I'm in recovery from alcohol. And so a little side note there, at the time of the incident, I had 10 months of sobriety. And so that was another like huge factor for me, is like maintaining that sobriety. And I knew the only way I was going to be able to do this was to heal this portion of my life. And I had already built a really good foundation into my sobriety, thankfully, that I was able to like maintain that sobriety. But that was also another really worrisome factor for me at that time, was just like, am I going to be able to stay sober through this? Because my thoughts at the beginning was, which I think would be common for most people. It's just like, why would this happen to me? Like, what did I do? This doesn't make any sense. Like, and I was protecting my eyes. Like I did everything, grew up snowboarding, I knew what I was doing. I was in the area that I should, like, we weren't out of bounds or we weren't doing anything that we shouldn't have been doing. So of course those thoughts just like come, and I was in a really hurtful space of like feeling, and also coming out of the pandemic where life had just barely started to get back on track. And now I feel like I'm going 10 steps backwards. And so I was just like hurting, and those thoughts were spiraling quite a bit. And I was just like, I need to get these out. So that's kind of where I started first, was just like starting to share a little bit of stuff on my personal page. That was just like, how did this happen to me? Like last year, I was like doing all of these things and just living life to the fullest. And now it's like, what does this mean for my future? And like, how am I ever going to be doing those things again? Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of time. I had a therapist at that time as well, too. So I was still maintaining my therapy sessions and still really tapping into the community that I had through sobriety and my family. And that was really helpful, too. Like I said, I was resting a lot. And this is something I like always try to strive, especially when someone comes to me and they just experienced an eye injury. I'm like, how can we get you to rest as much as you need? Like I was so tired all of the time. And I think because they didn't remove my eye right away. So I had this damaged eye in there that was trying to repair itself at the same time. And then of course my mind was trying to repair itself. My body was like trying to repair itself. And so I was sleeping like 12 hours every night. I was taking naps during the day, which I'm not like a nap taker. I sleep at night, but other than that, I'm go, 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 go. And so that felt really weird to me too. And there was points that I'm like, am I ever going to have energy back? And that was actually like scary for me too, just that feeling of lack of energy. After the eye was removed, I felt a noticeable difference in my energy level. And then slowly, a couple months after that, it like went right back to where it was before. So I have recovered with my energy level too, but I really strive towards like taking those naps and like sleeping the full time at night and just really owing people. And I know this is so hard for us, like, or for me, at least it was, to have people like help me with my laundry and to give me rides and to take things off of my plate. So like delegating the things to whoever I could so that I could take those naps and I could really rest. And in the long term, I think it ultimately healed me better physically and mentally. And that's like where I'm at today too, is like kind of those initial things I did at the beginning, which is really having that compassion and being gentle. And I know everyone's situation is different, but that's one of the first things that I like recommend when I get someone that's like, I just had an eye injury. I'm like, okay, what can we take off your plate? Like anything and everything so that you can really just rest. And I know that's not what you probably want to do because, when we go in those things, we almost are like, we just want to push through it and like improve ourselves that we can do it and we don't need to like rest. But I know for a fact that that is really what helps our bodies and minds heal even better and stronger.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You mentioned before that some people in your community experience a sort of period of grief or loss when they have an illness or an injury that impacts them like that. Is that something that you experienced as well? Did it feel like you were actually grieving something at that point when you had the eye injury?
That's kind of the space. So I really didn't grasp that portion. I knew that I was hurting and I had a lot of these more like victim or pity thoughts. So that was space that lasted for a really long time. I probably didn't get out of that mentality till like 7-8 months. And that was like the time I was resting. And then I would say it was probably like after the 1 year, it was a while, like after, or maybe even longer, closer to like the 2-year anniversary, that it finally really hit me that like, I have to grieve the fact that I like really lost a part of my body and it's no longer there. And like, that's okay. But like, I have to like acknowledge that portion too. Cause I think, like I said, I'm really good at like pushing things under the rug, which I did that at bits and pieces. And the more I talk to the community too, is when things come to light. So every time I do like a virtual meetup or we have the conferences or I'm coaching with someone, they express something and I'm like, oh yeah, like I went through that, or I needed to do that, or I still haven't even done that. Like you bringing that up, I'm like, I need to grieve that or kind of go through that a little bit more. And so I've had people write letters to their eye, kind of like a love letter of like just letting go too. Cause it is a hard thing to really wrap your mind around unless you're like in that position where it's like, and I'm sure people maybe that lose other limbs, arms or legs or fingers or whatever may go through something similar. I'm not sure. I haven't been through that, but for an eye and like losing that vision and like having the eye completely gone, I think it's just really important to grieve as far as like that eye is gone and it's been removed and a part of me is like gone, and there'd be a battle between feeling that resentful and grateful, because it always could have been worse, but also I can be resentful that that still happened to me. I can accept and move forward the best way, what's best for me too. And I get to express myself in other ways today too, because they have these fun eyes. So I'm wearing one that has a star on it. And so there's Ocularis that makes some fun eyes. And that was another tricky part for me. So once I had my first prosthetic, which is a whole story in its own too, which we can get into or not if you want. But the first prosthetic did match my natural eye, which it took me a while to get a good one that I actually liked, but I finally got one that I was really happy with. At that point, then I felt like I was hiding a part of myself because, it looks just like my normal eye. And I know other people kind of go through this as well too, where it's just like, we don't necessarily want to cover up what happened to us. And that can be part of the healing and grieving process too. It's like, okay, now I get to share this and I get to talk about it and I get to express it with these fun prosthetic eyes. So I have the star one. I've got one that's a rainbow apple. I have one that has like fun little swirlies on it. And some of the other people, if anyone were to search prosthetic eye in TikTok or Instagram, they'll find hundreds of videos of like all these content creators with really fun eyes, with all different designs. Some of the girls have like 20 different eyes and they wear them with different outfits, and it's amazing. And the community is so tight knit. So it's like, I know all of these people. I've actually we did a little in-person meetup up in Portland back in April. And so a bunch of us went up there and hung out together. So that was really, really fun. And we're going to do more of those and on bigger scales and stuff as well too. So, that's not everyone's route that has had an eye removed. Maybe they want to wear a natural eye, and depending on family and work and just their comfortability, that's always an option too. And I think that that's amazing too. And if that's how, but for me, I had that process, that feeling like I want to express this and I want to be able to wear something. It already looks different than my real eye. And so if it's going to look different, I want it to look really different. That was my thought process too, and helped me along with the breathing too.
So everyone needs to find sort of their own path that supports them in their healing journey, whatever works best for their individual situation. Yeah, that's very interesting. I actually have not looked up prosthetic eyes yet, but I definitely will after you said that. So I will definitely take a look and then see what kind of videos people make and what they talk about. And would you say that community was one of the things that helped you through this process, that supported you in your healing journey? Or were there other things as well that really made a difference in you moving forward from the injury?
I'd say community is number one. And I knew that because of getting sober. So when I first got sober, I needed a community, and I did a recovery community. I do AA, and I'm very surrounded in that community. And I knew how important that was, and how important it was to, again, have people that I could talk to, on the sobriety level and journey, and help each other through that. So when this eye injury occurred, I knew that that's exactly what I needed and how important that was for me. And so essentially I set that same foundation up. So I went and built this community. I found people, I talked to them, we shared stories. It's harder because when you have sobriety, it's you can find people locally, because there's a bunch of us that live in one area, depending on your area. But there's a lot that live here in San Diego. And then when we talk about eye injury, I can't just walk into a meeting hall and find all these people that have one eye, and we're very spread out. So it's even the people that I connect with. I have met a few people that do live in San Diego. So that's always a mission too. I'm if you live in San Diego, please reach out. Let's get together. And I've gone and gotten coffee with different people. Or if they're traveling and they follow the page and they're here in San Diego, then I've had people hit me up too. So that's really fun. You're welcome to hit me up too if you're traveling to San Diego. But other than that, we're really spread out and all over the world. So we have to do everything virtually for now. But I just knew that I could, even for that, it works. It really does work. Like even doing the Zoom meetups, it's like we're all on the little Zoom screens, but we can just share openly and talk and connect with one another. And sometimes the little meetups we do, there's only like 10 of us in there, and we've had ones that have like 40 of us in there. So it's cool to have both too, because the smaller ones are definitely more intimate and just easier for everyone to talk and get to know each other. But the big one, the energy is just a lot bigger, and people are just kind of just amazing to see everyone come together in one space too.
Yeah. And it sounds like that support can contribute a lot to people's healing journey and to finding maybe their identity after an injury or a loss like that again, and who they want to be and what they want to do, because that might change for them as well after the injury. So finding that new why and that new who they are through the support. Did that impact you at all on the goals that you had and career choices that you wanted to make, anything like that? Did you find that your injury impacted that in any kind of way?
Yeah, actually, it was like a major shift for me because I had just completed like an EMT course. I was thinking about pursuing like EMT or paramedic, maybe nursing. And so I had literally taken the test, finished my program in January. The accident happened in February. So then by the time I healed, it was like 7 months after. And I fully believe that like I could have gone back into that work and really committed myself and been able to do that work. And anyone out there that has one eye can do that work and be an EMT and a nurse and a doctor. I don't know, at that moment, and I think maybe it was wrapped up in some of those thoughts too. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I didn't have anybody and I wasn't seeing anybody. But today it's like, I get on my social media and it's like, I know hairstylists and I know artists that are like really like completely visually impaired or blind artists. And I know people that write books. And I do know someone that's an EMT, and I know people that are like fashion bloggers or like runway models, it's just like everything, and teachers. And so it's like, I know that I could have gone that route and picked up where I left off, but there was just like this overwhelming urge in me to like do something else. And I kind of had that perspective change that was like, it had me asking some really deep questions, like, okay, who do I want to be in this life? Like, how do I want to show up? Like, what is my purpose? And like, how am I going to make the most out of this situation? So I just felt this like urge to do something different and to like offer something in the community to be able to like serve. And I've always known that my purpose is to like serve and be a coach. Like, I work really well. Like, I do a ton of coaching and mentoring within the sobriety community and sponsorship. And then I was an esthetician for a long time, but I just know that the connections that I had when I was an esthetician at this spa with my clients was just like a little bit deeper than like typical esthetician work. And so I just, over the years, have really, really built up this ability to like talk to people, to bring people together, to connect, to ask questions, to help coach. And then I've done, different. So since then too, I've had multiple different coaches and I've done like a coaching certification. So I've really known for a long time that that was like my passion. And now that I've like done, some educating and gotten some tools to inform and help my clients even more, like it's just a no-brainer to me at this point. But it's taken me a long time to get there. And obviously at the beginning, I'm like, wait, is this what I should be doing? And I get all of these signs every single day when I'm open to it that are just like, yes, you're in the right direction. You're doing the right thing. Just keep moving forward. And it's what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
Yeah. And it does sound like you have found your path and your calling in building this community and supporting others who have had vision loss. So yeah, that sounds like an amazing community that you have built and the support that you offer. Now, I'm wondering, do you have any advice for family members of individuals who might have eye illness or vision loss or vision impairment? Because it is such a change in life that you experience, is there anything that your family and support network and loved ones did that was really helpful, and some things that maybe weren't so helpful, where you have some advice for how the people who are supporting people with vision loss, any advice for them on what they could or shouldn't do when they're helping someone?
Yeah. And I guess it would depend on if the person that's having the vision loss is a child or an adult. So I'll speak on both a little bit. Obviously, I can speak the adult side a little bit more since that's my experience. But since working in the community with the children and the families, I know a little bit on that as well too. And I know every family is a little bit different as well too. And I do coach with families as well. But one of the biggest things I see for the kids is obviously like really talking with teachers and the principals and making sure that everyone is aware that they have a prosthetic eye, because a lot of times they do come in and out. And so young kids love to pop them in and out, and just like navigating that situation and being able to share openly with the teachers and like what questions to ask and how to share that information too. And a big thing that comes up with the kids is just like other little kids like bullying or being mean, things like that too. So just really having those conversations with your young children. And I actually went live with a mother and her 10-year-old daughter on Instagram last week. And I asked the 10-year-old, she was so cute. I was like, what do you say, when people ask, when other kids or other adults like ask what happened to you, or you have to know exactly what you want to say one like sentence of, and it was so cute. And she had it all planned out and said it perfectly and was just so confident about, the statement that she wanted to say, and that best again suited her and felt comfortable to her. And then I also asked, I was like, if you don't want to talk about it that day, are you comfortable telling this person, like, I don't want to talk about it? She's like, yeah, so just knowing and having boundaries and knowing like, okay, I can share as much or as little as I want about my story. So the parents just have to be, of course, loving and supportive and help. And I think just searching out a community of their own, other parents, and then even with adults, because I think what helps the parents is seeing adults like living their life to their fullest with their prosthetic eye. And it's like, okay, my kid can do that too. Like they're going to be okay. So just like for the parents to have their own support network as well. And then also, I think it's important to have the kids just like involved as much as possible with their story, who they tell, and then with the oculars. So it's like they have to go in and get the oculars to make prosthetic eyes. And I think if you can get the kids really involved in that process, so they feel like they have some control and they know what's happening and they're not out of the dark and there's nothing wrong with them, not to be ashamed, it just helps the overall experience for these kids and the confidence level. So that's for kids. And I'm always, learning more and more as like time goes on and I work with new families or different families or I hear things. So I'm sure things always will get added on to that. And then as an adult for myself, what really helped was like my family and friends showing up without me even having to ask during the time. It's like I would have probably not asked, or, I really learned how to ask during that time, but they were showing up without me really needing to ask as well too. It's like, hey, do you need anything from the grocery store? Hey, can I give you a ride somewhere? Like, what are your doctor's appointments this week? Like, can I help you make the doctor's appointment? So just if you have a loved one that just went through an eye injury, like take some initiative and really try to just ask questions to see what you can help with. And they might not even know, but just be like, if there's anything I can help with, like that helps too. Or like grocery shopping, just making sure there's lots of ice cream in the house. That's what I always wanted. And, doctor's appointments, because there are a lot of appointments. At least I had so many, because there's so many parts of the eye, which I didn't know that either. So I had to see like a back of the eye specialist and a retina specialist and a white of the eye specialist. So I was going to like at least 1 or 2 appointments every week, seeing all these different specialists. I don't know if that's the same for everybody, but that was my situation. And so just really offering that assistance. And then also, I guess too, it's like finding a community or helping to direct. If you come across, like so many times I'll get a message that's like, hey, my boyfriend just had an eye injury. Like, how can I help him? Or can he join this community? Or can he get coaching, or this person, my neighbor, I have people like reach out to me and try to connect their loved ones into the community too. So there's no right or wrong. You just got to like show up and be in love and be as helpful as you can. And just be there and try to maybe direct them to a community that does know a little bit more, just because we've been through it. But again, just being there and loving and supportive. Oh, I want to put one more thing, knowing that it takes longer than we expect. So I think at the beginning for me, I thought, my family thought like, oh yeah, she'll be back on her feet in no time, and it took significantly longer than I thought that I wanted. And so I think reassuring, if you have a loved one at home that's getting impatient or that's struggling with how long it's taking, to just keep reassuring them, like, it's okay. It does take longer than you think, like months and months and months. And so just keep being patient and letting them rest during that time and really allow that full time as much time as it takes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And we don't all heal on the same timeline. So yeah, the difference for everyone that it might take until the physical symptoms go away and then the mental symptoms get easier. So yeah. And you mentioned at the beginning of the episode a little bit about what you do. So if listeners have aligned with this episode and they'd like to work with you or they'd like to join your community, where can they get in touch and how can they find you?
Absolutely. So we have a website. It's called iheesive.com, or we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube at iheesive. And that's just EYEHESIVE. So like cohesive, like the sticking together, coming together, but iheesive. And then I offer one-on-one coaching sessions. So I just have like one package. It's 5 months. We do meet virtually once a week during that 5 months and kind of go through everything that I discussed earlier in the episode. But it really is tailored to each person, like their specific needs. So we always have a consultation. I really see where you're at in your vision loss, your prosthetic eye journey, how long it's been, and then really what you need or what you're looking for. So it's tailored specifically to you. And then the community, yes. So you can just follow along on Instagram. I try to share just lots of valuable content on there all the time, and like through the email list as well. And then we have the monthly virtual meetup. So if you sign up for the email list or you just follow along on Instagram, you won't miss it because I always post about them. And then there'll be a link that you can sign up for the monthly virtual meetups. And then we sell shirts as well too. So, and this is actually kind of fun. So I've got a variety of different shirts that say One Eye Gang, or we even have ones that say One Eye Gang supporter. And I've got beanies and tank tops and bookmarks. So we've got a whole shop merch page on the website with the whole One Eye Gang gear. And I just recently launched the One Eye Gang supporter shirt. So I thought that was fun for our families and friends. If you follow along there, you can definitely interact. The Facebook group's a little bit more interactive. We can talk and to one another, ask questions, but definitely Instagram, there's so much support in there just by people sharing their stories or sharing or tagging me in reels and stuff. Like I'll always like reshare that as well too, or connect people that I know have really similar stories or going through similar things. I'm like, oh, this person, like I'm connecting you two together. So I try to do as much of that as possible too. Also, like I want everyone that's, already following along or newly going to be following along to just stay tuned for the in-person conference we'll do 1 year and just the growth of iHeesive and what's to come next too, because I have a lot of ideas. Just doing them all.
That sounds amazing. And we will be linking to all of Shelby's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there for the links to her community and to her website. The shirts that you have just recently launched, if you'd like to purchase those, we'll make sure that we link to all of those things in the show notes for you. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into finding yourself through vision loss as much as I have. It has been a pleasure hosting you on the podcast today, Shelby, and thank you so much for coming on and talking to me and bringing all this wisdom and insight that you have gained over the past few years from your own injury. Thank you for sharing that journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me on today. It was a pleasure to share my experience, some of my story, and just the insight that I've gained along the last 2 years. And I really hope it can help somebody out there.
Yeah, I hope that the listeners take this opportunity to join your community if they've also had vision loss or sustained an injury, to really connect and like you experience some of that healing that comes with that community. So yeah, thank you so much for that, Shelby, and take great care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.